In today's chilling story, three friends realize that playing games with the supernatural is a price not many are willing to pay. Will they be able to silence the spirits they released? Or will the spirits silence them? Three friends, Jack, Sarah, and Alex, gathered in the dimly lit living room of their creaking Victorian-era house. The air carried an otherworldly chill that seemed to seep through the ancient floorboards, raising the hairs on their arms. A tale whispered by the locals lingered in their minds, a tale that spoke of a reclusive old woman at the end of the street, Mrs. Abernathy, rumoured to possess a connection to the supernatural. The flickering glow of candlelight cast an eerie shadow on the walls as they huddled around a worn wooden table, with a worn-out Ouija board and a scattering of dusty crystals. Curiosity and a misplaced sense of invisibility fueled the desire to experience something beyond the mundane. "Come on, guys, it's just a bit of fun," Jake declared, a nervous smile playing on his lips. "Let's see if the old lady really can connect to the other side." With reluctant nods, they set out into the moonlit night, navigating the twisted cobblestone streets to Mrs. Abernathy's ramshackle abode. The wind whispered through the gnarled branches, carrying with it an unsettling melody that seemed to echo the mournful cries of unseen spirits. Mrs. Abernathy's residence loomed ahead, a decaying mansion cloaked in ivy and obscured by the shadows of ancient trees. The windows, like empty eye sockets, stared blankly into the night. The friends hesitated, exchanging uneasy glances, but the thrill of the unknown propelled them forward. Upon entering the dimly lit parlour, the air thickened with an oppressive energy. The scent of must and decay hung in the air, as though the very walls were exhaling secrets long forgotten. Mrs. Abernathy, a frail figure wrapped in layers and shawls, regarded them with piercing, ageless eyes. "You seek the spirits," she croaked, her voice a haunting melody. "But be warned, once the veil is lifted, it cannot be easily closed." As the seance begun, Mrs. Abernathy chanted ancient incantations, her withered hands guiding the planchette across the Ouija board. The atmosphere grew dense, and the temperature plummeted. Unseen forces seemed to gather around them, whispering secrets in a language long lost to the ages. Suddenly, a guttural groan echoed through the room, and Mrs. Abernathy's eyes widened in terror. The oppressive energy escalated, seizing control of her fragile form. In an instant, her heart gave way to an overwhelming power of ancient spirit she had contained for decades. The friends watched in horror as Mrs. Abernathy convulsed, her body a vessel for the malevolent force now unleashed. The room plunged into darkness, the only illumination emanating from the ethereal glow of spiritual entities taking shape. The once innocent quest for thrills had turned into a nightmare, and the friends, paralyzed with fear, now faced the chilling consequences of meddling with forces beyond their understanding. The spirits, now free, hungered for revenge, and the three friends were unwittingly entangled in a web of darkness that threatened to consume them whole. Weeks passed since that fateful night, and the once ordinary lives of Jake, Sarah, and Alex were now overshadowed by an unrelenting darkness. The air in the shared Victorian home felt charged with unseen malice, and an ominous weight that settled in every nook and cranny. The friends tried to push the memory of Mrs. Abernathy's demise to the recess of their minds, but the supernatural scars left by the unleashed spirits festered beneath the surface. Shadows danced menacingly in the corner of their vision, and the faint echoes of ghostly whispers lingered in the quiet moments. Night after night, they found themselves plagued by a relentless parade of nightmares, each one more twisted and horrifying than the last. A spectral presence seemed to seep into their dreams, a manifestation of the ancient spirits seeking to bind themselves to the living. The atmosphere within the house grew increasingly oppressive, Creaks and groans echoed through the hallways, as if the very foundations were haunted by restless entities. Objects moved on their own accord, and a chill settled in the air even during the warmest of days. One evening, as they gathered in the living room to confront the mounting unease, a flickering candle cast eerie shadows on the walls. An unspoken understanding passed between them as they exchanged anxious glances. "I can't shake this feeling," Sarah confessed, her voice quivering. "It's like we're being watched, followed." Jake nodded in agreement. "And those dreams, I can't tell where reality ends and the nightmares are beginning." As they spoke, the shadows in the room seemed to coalesce, taking on sinister forms. Wisps of darkness slithered across the floor, intertwining with the ethereal echoes of Mrs. Abernathy's final moments. The spirits, hungry for a connection to the living, reached out to the friends with unseen tendrils. The encounters intensified, malevolent whispers, echoes through the halls, taunting them with fragments of forgotten sins. The friends, once bound by the innocence of their friendship, now found themselves isolated by the encroaching darkness. Feeling suffocated by the oppressive atmosphere in their Victorian home, Jake decided to take a break from the haunted halls and escape to the coastal town by train. The rhythmic clatter of wheels on the tracks offered a momentary respite as the train carved through the night. However, the shadows that clung to Jake's existence seemed to follow, refusing to release their grip. As the train sped along the tracks, Jane became acutely aware of a peculiar figure seated across the aisle. The person, an old haggard soul, bore eyes that gleamed with an unnatural intensity. Unsettled, Jake attempted to dismiss the eerie gaze, attributing it to mere paranoia. But as the minutes ticked by, the old figure's fixation intensified, and it was as if the eyes held an ancient hunger, fixated on something beyond the veil of the mundane. The tension reached a breaking point when, without warning, the old figure bolted from the seat, sprinting towards Jake with a guttural cry. Passengers around them remained oblivious, their gazes fixed on books, phones, or the passing scenery. The air buzzed with an otherworldly energy as the spirit, now revealed, continued to scream, "I want it! I want it!" Panicking, Jake scanned the train, desperately seeking validation that the others shared this spectral encounter. Yet, the world around remained indifferent. Passengers absorbed in their own reality, blind to the supernatural drama unfolding. The relentless pursuit forced Jake to confront the unthinkable. The spirit was drawn to him, seeking a connection, a life force to anchor him to the world of the living. With every scream, the spirit's desperation echoed through Jake's mind, threatening to unravel his sanity. As the train neared the coastal town, Jake's anxiety reached a fever pitch. Seeking solace, he decided to visit a nearby church, hoping that the sacred ground would provide sanctuary from the relentless pursuit. But fate had other plans. As Jake traversed the cemetery en route to the church, a chorus of ethereal whispers emanated from the gravestones. Shadows detached themselves from the tombstones, coalescing into ghostly forms. Each spirit, once bound to the earthly plane, now sought refuge in Jake's presence. The air grew thick with the weight of accumulated sorrow, and the spirits, like moths to a flame, latched onto Jake's essence. The haunting chorus of their anguish reverberated through the cemetery, echoing the depths of the supernatural despair Jake had unwittingly become entangled with. Now we're going to have a short scare break while you ease your nerves. So while you're waiting, don't forget, if you're enjoying the content, go ahead and stab that subscribe button right now. As doing so, you'll really help the professor spread his shadow of evil. Now, let's get back to the story. Sarah, in stark contrast to her friend's growing unease, embraced her party lifestyle with an unwavering enthusiasm. Night after night, she lost herself in the pulsating rhythm of the club, drumming out the ominous whispers that seemed to linger on the edge of her consciousness. One evening, as the bass thumped through the crowded dance floor, Sarah's laughter intermingled with the melodies of a carefree existence. The neon lights cast a surreal glow on the revelers, creating an illusion of detachment from the world outside the club. However, the illusion shattered when Sarah noticed an old woman amidst the vibrant chaos. Her gaze, piercing and relentless, seemed to cut through the vivacity of the scene. Sarah tried to dismiss the eerie sensation crawling up her spine, attributing it to the effects of the flashing lights and loud music. As the night progressed, the old woman's presence persisted. No matter where Sarah turned, or how many friends she engaged with, the haunting gaze followed her every move. An unsettling feeling settled in, a gnawing discomfort that refused to be drowned out by the beats of the music. Attempting to shake off the unnerving encounter, Sarah stepped into the cool night air. Relief washed over her as she believed she had left the mysterious old woman behind. That reprieve was short-lived. A sudden gust of wind carried an otherworldly chill as Sarah hailed a taxi. As the vehicle pulled away from the curb, she caught sight of the old woman in the reflection of the car window. Panic seized as she watched a figure sitting beside her, the same haunting gaze fixed on Sarah's soul. In a desperate attempt to escape the figure materializing next to her, Sarah ordered the taxi to speed through the darkened streets. Yet, no matter how fast the vehicle moved, the old woman kept materializing, an ethereal passenger in this otherworldly journey. As the taxi careened through the city, the old woman's presence grew more tangible. The air inside the cab thickened with an unseen force, and the spectral figure, now inches away, unleashed a guttural scream that reverberated through Sarah's very core. "I want it! I want it!" the old woman wailed, her voice an unsettling blend of desperation and longing. Sarah, paralyzed by fear, clutched the edges of the seat, unable to escape the relentless pursuit of the supernatural entity. While Jake and Sarah grappled with the visible onslaught of spirits, Alex, the more studious of the trio, sought refuge in the confines of his home. Immersed in the glow of his computer screen, he delved into the realms of the supernatural, hoping that knowledge would provide a shield against the haunting forces that loomed around him. Days turned into nights as Alex's online exploration led him down virtual rabbit holes filled with tales of the spirit realm, the undead, and the ghosts that lingered in the fringes of existence. His obsession with understanding the supernatural grew, fueled by a desperate need to find a solution to the spectral chaos that had consumed his life. One evening, as he scrolled through the ancient texts on the forums, a knock echoed through the silence of his home. Puzzled, Alex approached the door, expecting to find a neighbor or perhaps a delivery. To his surprise, the doorstep lay empty, void of any human presence. Returning to his study, Alex dismissed the incident as a mere product of his over-imagination. However, as his attention returned to the glow of his computer screen, a figure materialized in an antique armchair across the room. Startled, Alex squinted at the apparition, an old man, worn by the passage of time, yet possessing an otherworldly vitality. Despite the initial shock, Alex cautiously uttered a greeting. "Hello?" No response from the spectral visitor. Alex repeated himself, trying to rationalize the surreal encounter. "You have the wrong home," he insisted, growing uneasy. Silence lingered in the room until, with an unexpected intensity, the old man's voice pierced through the air. "I want it." Confusion etched across Alex's face. "What do you want?" he questions, his voice trembling. "Life," the old man declared, his spectral gaze fixed on Alex. Staring at the ethereal figure, Alex felt a chill run down his spine. The room seemed to contract, as if the very walls were closing in on him. The air thickened with the weight of an unspoken demand, and Alex's quest for knowledge had unwittingly invited an otherworldly presence into his haven of solitude. As the old man's proclamation hung in the air, Alex faced a haunting revelation. The pursuit of understanding had not shielded him from the encroaching darkness. Instead, it had invited a malevolent force, seeking a connection to the vitality of the living. In the midst of his scholarly exploration, Alex had become entangled in a supernatural web, and the boundaries between the realms of the living and the dead had blurred into an undistinguishable tapestry of fear and uncertainty. The friends, burdened by the individual encounters with the supernatural, decided to reunite in a desperate attempt to confront the haunting forces that had woven their lives into a tapestry of terror. Alex, driven by newfound knowledge, shared the unsettling details of his spectral encounter and the revelations he had uncovered through exhaustive research. As the trio gathered in the dimly lit room, the air crackled with an unspoken tension. The haunted expressions on their faces mirrored the collective weight of the otherworldly events that had unfolded. The flickering candlelight cast eerie shadows, emphasizing the gravity of their shared predicament. "We can't keep ignoring this," Alex declared, his voice determined. "The key to restoring balance lies in allowing the spirits to attach themselves to one of us. It's the only way to put an end to this." Jake and Sarah exchanged skeptical glances, grappling with the implications of Alex's proposal. The notion of willingly becoming a vessel for the tormented souls sent shivers down their spines. Yet the urgency of their situation left them with few alternatives. "But how do we choose?" Sarah questioned, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and defiance. Alex hesitated, his gaze shifting between his friends. "We need to consider the circumstances of Mrs. Abernathy's death. The spirits were unleashed because she couldn't contain them any longer. We have to restore the balance by allowing them to attach to one of us, willingly." As they deliberated, a dissonant hum permeated the room, resonating with the lingering energy of the supernatural. Shadows danced on the walls, a silent reminder of the restless spirits awaiting resolution. Friends grappled with an impossible decision. Each of them, in their own way, had experienced the haunting consequences of that ill-fated séance. The weight of the guilt hung heavy, and the spectre of the old lady's demise loomed over them. After moments of tense silence, Jake spoke, his voice sturdier than before. "We can't let this darkness consume us any longer. If it's the only way, then it's the only way." With exhaustion and fear etched across Jake's face, he continued, "No way will it be me, though. I haven't slept for days. This old man is always there, screaming at me. I couldn't take it." As his words hung in the air, a palpable tension settled in the room. The flickering candlelight seemed to dance with an ominous energy, casting distorted shadows on the walls. Sarah and Alex exchanged glances, realizing the gravity of the situation. "You're the strong one, Alex. You do it," Jake implored, his eyes pleading with his friend. But before Alex could respond, the air in the room grew charged with an otherworldly presence. Ectoplasm materialized, oozing from unseen dimensions and filling the space with an eerie luminescence. The temperature dropped, and a spectral figure emerged from the ectoplasmic mist, the old man who had haunted Jake's waking hours and sleepless nights. "You refuse me life." The old man's voice reverberated through the room, an unsettling blend of anger and despair. Ectoplasm surrounded Jake, swirling around him like a sinister vortex. In an instant, he was engulfed, his form dissolving into the spectral mist until he vanished from sight. The room, now eerily silent, bore witness to the reluctant sacrifice that Jake had become. Sarah and Alex stood in stunned silence, their eyes fixed on the empty space where Jake had once stood. The weight of the decision they had faced hung heavily in the air, and the truth dawned upon them. It was not just a choice between life and death, but a negotiation with the forces beyond mortal comprehension. The realization passed between Sarah and Alex, unspoken but understood. To refuse the spirits the gift of life meant succumbing to an inexorable fate. The boundaries between the living and the dead blurred, and the consequences of their actions unfolded in a tragic spectacle. "Screw it," Sarah declared, her voice a mixture of defiance and resignation. "I'll give them what they want. My life is just partying and a different boyfriend each week. Let me have some purpose." As Sarah spoke, a newfound determination overcame her. The room seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, as if the spirits were eagerly anticipating the fulfillment of their grim bargain. "I'll give you life," Sarah screamed, her voice echoing through the haunted space. Alex reached out, his hand extended, as if to pull her back from the precipice of sacrifice. "Hold on, Sarah," he pleaded, but it was too late. Ectoplasm began to seep from Sarah's eye sockets, mouth and ears, a macabre manifestation of the life force being extracted from her. The room quivered with an unsettling energy as the spirits, now visible in their ethereal forms, converged upon Sarah. The ectoplasmic tendrils wrapped around her, pulling the essence of life from her. Sarah's scream echoed through the room, a chilling sympathy of pain and surrender. The haunting spectacle unfolded, and in the final moments of the ghastly transaction, Sarah's body convulsed as the spirits claimed their due. As the ectoplasm dissipated, Sarah stood in the room, an empty shell devoid of the vibrant energy that once defined her. The spirits, satiated by the life force she willingly offered, retreated into the shadows, leaving behind an eerie stillness. Alex, now the sole witness to the haunting aftermath, stared at Sarah's vacant eyes. The weight of their choices hung in the air, and the reality of the supernatural bargain settled upon him like a heavy shroud. In a sudden twist, Sarah's life had found a new purpose, albeit in the most unexpected of ways. She, who once revelled in the transient pleasures of the living, now bore the burden of being a medium between worlds. As the remnants of the supernatural transaction lingered, it became clear that Sarah had become the conduit for the spirits, forever tethered to the realms beyond. The room, once charged with spectral energy, returned to a semblance of normalcy. The flickering candlelight cast dancing shadows on the walls, and the air held the heavy stillness of an unsettling calm. As Alex grieved the loss of his friends and grappled with the haunting consequences of their choices, Sarah, now a vessel for the spirits, stood on the precipice of a new existence, one that blurred the boundaries between the living and the dead, where the echoes of a fateful seance reverberated through her newfound purpose as the keeper of spectral secrets. And if you're still looking to fulfill your thirst for more horror, don't forget to check out this next video, unless of course you're frozen with fear already.